swapping out sidearms and surviving samurais. Here's your look at new Hiya Toys, RoboCop 3, RoboCop vs. Otomo. Exquisite Mini is a new standard setting series for 1/18 scale, featuring super articulation action figures under Hiya Toys. Just before we get things underway for the review of RoboCop 3's RoboCop and Otomo, although I may have called him Otomo at the beginning of this video, either way, I'd like to thank the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample that we're about to have a look at. Now, the figures are going to be about the same size to one another. I think Otomo in the movie is a little taller than RoboCop, but roughly they're still going to be 3 3/4 inch tall figures, just to get that correctly in order. And we're going to measure off RoboCop, and then pretty much the same is going to follow over to Otomo. First, for RoboCop, the figures, are in fact 3 3/4 of an inch tall, or they're about 10 centimeters in height. And for the sake of comparisons, and for also the sake I really like RoboCop 2's Kane, I'm going to bring in RoboCop 2 Kane right now. Now again, I have adjusted the thighs. I know that's one thing you guys have asked a couple of times in that review, that the thighs are adjustable. Yes, you can. You swing them down, and it gives them a little bit of extra reach. Now, clearly RoboCop 2 Kane doesn't appear at all in RoboCop 3, but any chance I get again to bring in this incredible piece by Hiya Toys, you know I'm going to take it. As for the figure's accessories, both RoboCop and Otomo's son do actually get a fair amount of accessories. RoboCop comes included with his data link, as well as standard trigger-firing hand, as well as his Auto 9. Otomo, on the other hand, does come included with a pair of swappable hands I have to question a little bit, as well as a katana blade. Meeting somewhere, though, in the middle, the figures also come included with their display stands. I love the look of the display stands for RoboCop here. They are identical to one another, and the key to making sure that they line up is to have them facing the same way. These aren't ones that you can in fact flip around the other way. As you can see, the track in the middle doesn't completely line up. Just simply follow the same placement of pegs and you're good to go. I love the coloring on these. Again, they're just their standard rectangular display stands with the provided slots on both the sides and again on the front, top, and the bottom. You get yourself some eye brackets. I know we're covering off territory we've already seen countless times already, but you get these, essentially these eye brackets. The brackets fit inside the provided grooves, and then you can attach not just one, but two. Obviously, you connect two together, but you can also continue on the trend and add more and more to that, depending on how many display stands you have. You're essentially just adding them again to those slotted sections, and they're all the way around every one of these rectangular display stands. Gonna put that to the side. We'll also move these other eye brackets out of the way because we don't need them right now. Maybe what we'll do first is we'll have a look at RoboCop, and we'll look at the accessories that come included with the figure. The figure comes included with a data link. Now, the data link hand, as you can see, first of all, is really, really tiny. I have to admit that I did drop this a couple of times prior to hitting record. Luckily, I was able to find it, but it's a small enough accessory that if you're not too careful, its whereabouts could become rather unknown. Now, the data link hand can easily just be swapped out with this side of his body. And in fact, actually, all the hands that come included with RoboCop are all for one on this side of the body. He also has, of course, the gun he only has in RoboCop 3. It doesn't seem to be removable, and even if it was removable, which it doesn't seem to be the case, he doesn't actually come with any other hand that goes on this side of his body. To change out the hand right now, I've got him with a relaxed hand. It's pretty easy. Simply, you just remove it from the peg post, and then just put in the hand that you want to use. I'm going to use the hand that has the trigger-firing finger. Just pop it onto the ball joint. And then from there, the figure also comes included with his Auto 9 pistol. The pistol has been provided in the other RoboCop releases we've gotten before. In fact, this RoboCop seems to be identical to the other RoboCops, even though technically Robert John Burke played RoboCop in RoboCop 3. Peter Weller, we all know, played RoboCop in the first one and the second one. But we'll go ahead, though, and take the Auto 9. It does fit fairly easy into his hands. The harder part is not necessarily getting the pistol into his hand, but rather not the hand falling off the joint and ending up again onto the floor. It's happened a couple of times already. Anyways, we can go ahead and take and remove the pistol. By the way, there is no open section here on this thigh where you can actually store that. I do hope that at some point down the road we get ourselves a RoboCop, not one that actually has a functioning thigh that opens and closes, but maybe one that actually has just one that's permanently open. You can holster then the Auto 9 inside of that. I'm sure they wouldn't have to do too much, taking the same mold that we already like now and simply just retooling a part of the thigh that has a permanently open section. You can store the Auto 9 inside. Like I said, though, what's rather funny, though, about this is that Robert Burke portrayed RoboCop in RoboCop 3 because Peter Weller didn't want to come back and play the role again. And yet, it seems like they're using the exact same body. It seems, though, a little bit more chrome than it was before. Head sculpt is really good on this one. I do admit, though, it's a little on the more wider side. I would have maybe squished the head ever so slightly, but still a good-looking head sculpt, especially when you see it from the side. The paint is really good on this as well, and being that this is also RoboCop 3, I hope that at some point down the road as well, we get ourselves the jet pack that can go onto the back of the figure's body, as this one doesn't come included with it. He does, like I said, come included with additional arm attachment. From what I can see, at least, it's not removable. It's not something you can actually take off the figure. But again, we already have two RoboCops anyways, a battle damaged version, and then this one here, or one that didn't have, of course, this arm here. So I'm sure having now this one with this figure, you're likely already having the other two RoboCops in your collection anyways. But yeah, overall, nice detailing on the figure. They haven't looked like, it doesn't look like at least they've changed anything to the figure. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's certainly nothing that was broken about RoboCop in the first place. For the articulation here on RoboCop, it's going to be the same as the one before. So the head is going to be on a ball joint, moves back and forth. It does look down, actually quite a lot, in fact. Moves up, and you also can rock it back and forth as well. Head is a little loose, I have to admit, on this figure, but obviously I'd much rather loose joints in the head, for example, than maybe loose joints in the shoulders or the legs. It's not the case at all. Upper torso is on a very generous ball joint. There is as well a secondary ball joint just below, just about before we get to the waist section of Robo. His arms rotate all the way around. They sit on ball joints after all. You can hinge them out. The figure does also have a single hinge possessing in the elbow. Now, there's no rotation on this side, but there is, however, rotation on this side, obviously in the way that the hand's been pegged into place. The legs seem to be on, though limited joints. There are on ball joints. You can take the legs and move forward. You can move them back. There's also a single hinge only on the knee. And then, again, the articulation in the ankles. Not only move them up and down, but you can also rock them back and forth as well. Like in the movie, he does have the pistons on the back of his body, and they are actually functioning pistons, which I think is a really nice touch, especially for a figure this small. Yeah, again, even though it's pretty much the same Robo as we got before, I do really like the look of this one quite a lot. I do hope at some point we do get ourselves also the blue version of RoboCop from RoboCop 2, one of my favorite looks for Robo. On to then Otomo, Otomo's son, as he's also called in the movie. Now, he actually has two versions of himself. Eventually, we'll see him battling essentially himself in the movie, as this one, notably, has the one that has the cracked face. I'm not sure why the camera's not focusing in on that. There we go. Okay. I don't know why. For some reason, it wasn't focusing. Maybe his mug was so ugly that the camera itself didn't even want to pick it up. But this is Otomo that does have the shattered face. I don't believe there is a standalone release of Otomo where he does have just a regular human face. I don't think it was necessarily the case where they didn't have the likeness. But I do wish, though, at some point that Hiya does release a regular Otomo. Then you can have one displayed on either side of RoboCop like they did in the movie. Now, he does have a sheath that's located on the back of his body. I wonder if RoboCop, maybe I'm just going to move Robo out of the way here for 1 second. Maybe Robo is just too distracting even for the camera. But like in the movie, he does have the sheath there on the back. The sheath can be removed technically. You just fit it over his head and then, of course, slide it down the shoulders. It does, I have to admit, a little bit on the more looser side. I kind of wish that there could have been like a peg here and maybe a hole on the back of his body. But obviously, then if you removed it altogether, you'd see a very obvious hole there on the back of his torso. But it does, I have to admit, sit a little on the more looser side. Now, Otomo does come included with a couple of swappable hands. The thing that confuses me about it, though, is that the hands don't seem all that much different from the hands that we hear with the figure. Now, granted, he has gripping hands on both the sides. I mean, these hands are a little bit more relaxed, but I almost feel like they weren't even necessary. They could have either just saved the plastic, maybe even, in fact, used the plastic instead, for a head that could be swapped out for this, for a cleaner expression instead. I will say, though, that the coloring on his face seems a tad too dark. I would have maybe made it just a little bit lighter, because certainly in the movie, it's not as dark as what we get right here. But again, I love the look of the shattered face. It's such a cool looking head, even though I don't like the character at all. It's not really much about RoboCop 3. In fact, I don't mind Robert John Burke's portrayal of Robo, but I have to think like his audio, his voice sounds a little too synthetic for me. Something about Peter Weller will still be able to have his human voice showing and shining through, whether they digitally altered it or not. We can go ahead and move these out of the way. The figure also comes included with, like I said, a sword. The reason why I say like I said is because, of course, the figure does have the holster here on the back. You can sheath the katana if you want. When you are putting it in, it seems to only go one way. I mean, when you get it this way, it kind of gets a little on the more tighter side. When I have it going the other way, it seems to slide in maybe about the same. I guess it's about the same either way. But this can also, of course, fit into his hand, just though while you're pulling it out, make sure that you're not pulling against the strap, as it does look like the strap is only attached by 2 places here. One right here and one right here. Pull it too quickly, and easily that strap could come detached from the back of the sheath. But anyways, you can take the sword and slide it into his hands. I mean, again, he comes with relaxed hands, but I don't even think they're necessarily necessary for this figure at all. And this is what Otomo looks like with the sword in his hand. Let's go ahead and take that out of his hand right now. This is going to bother me, but I don't know if I really, you know what, let's see if I can just take this off right now. It's probably going to come back and make an appearance later. It's simply just going to be sliding over the head, sliding down the arms. We're just going to put it to the side just for right now. Getting a closer look again, we've already had a look at the head sculpt. Pretty good. Skin color, I admit, is a little on the more darker side. And then, of course, he does have the black outfit. The outfit has sort of layers to it. So underneath, of course, your traditional sort of samurai look that he has. And then he has sort of this jacket that goes over top of it. The jacket's sculpt continues also into the sleeves. And he's got some additional shinier plastic that's been added there, likely more painted. And then the rest of the plastic is kind of just more the matte black. You got a little bit of the shinier black paint that's also been added here to the boots. And like RoboCop, Otomo does have holes in the bottoms of his feet. The articulation on Otomo is pretty much going to be the same as RoboCop. The head is again on that ball joint, so you can rotate the head all the way around. It does look down, it does look up, and again, you can move it back and forth. Shoulders, pretty much the same applies. You can bring those at 90 degrees, or you can take those arms and rotate them all the way around. They are a little on the more tighter side. Again, I'm only describing this, the figure that I have in front of me. A little on the more tighter side when it comes to rotating the arms all the way around. The figure has only a single hinge again on the elbow. Allows the rotation, at least at the forearm, not something that RoboCop would be able to pull off, and the hands also rotate back and forth. Still, despite the fact he does have the jacket over top, he does have also an additional upper torso ball joint. It's a little kind of harder to get to. A lower torso ball joint. And again, the legs are on ball joints on the insides of the thighs. I don't know if you guys can actually see that or not. The legs can go forward, the legs can go back. There is a single hinge on the knee, although these knees are really tight on the figure. Not that I'm going to be putting in any more interesting enough pose other than just having them standing straight. But I guess if I did want to be slightly squatted, I may have to just heat the joints a little bit with either a hairdryer or hot water. And then again, you've got the articulation back and forth in the ankles. They do also rock back and forth this way as well. You know, again, I have to admit, I'm not a fan of RoboCop 3 at all. I mean, there's things I like about it. I like the idea that RoboCop actually got himself like a little arm weapon. I thought that was kind of cool. And him flying around in a jetpack, honestly, even when I was younger, I thought was pretty fun as well. For what they had to work with, Robert John Burke, I thought delivered a decent enough Robo. It's still nowhere close to what we got with Peter Weller. I do like the idea of samurai robots, although I have to admit, I don't think it was really translated well when we saw it in the movie. I like the idea, at least, that there's more than one Otomo, which I can only hope then again, as we've looked at a 2-pack here with a battle-damaged Otomo, that Hiya Toys at some point, if they haven't already, released a single version, a standalone release of Otomo, with a undamaged head sculpt. Much like the actor change in RoboCop 3, RoboCop himself takes also some design changes as well, adding the additional forearm gun that he has in the movie, not to mention a jetpack. We're only treated to one of them, at least with this release. You get the arm attachment that doesn't seem to be removable here on RoboCop. He doesn't have a jetpack, mind you, but I'm sure at some point, if they already have this mold already and they already have the existing arm piece, I'm sure they could easily re-release this figure with the additional jetpack. I have to wonder if that's going to cause the figure to have some difficult time to stand, but to be really fair, the figures come with display stands anyways. Maybe that won't be a problem at all. The head sculpts seem to be also the exact same as the other 2 RoboCops we looked at before, the regular clean version, the battle damage version of RoboCop, even though what's rather funny is it's Robert Burke playing the role. Peter Weller sadly couldn't come back to play and reprise his role for RoboCop 3. Having already watched RoboCop 3, I can certainly understand why Peter Weller didn't want to come back to play the role again. As for Otomo, I didn't like the design of him in the character. I like the character concept of a human samurai. I also like the idea that the face got shattered at some point, so we sort of see how fractured the face was. I don't think it's as cool, honestly, as like an Ed 209. It's certainly far from being as cool as RoboCop 2, but I guess they wanted to do something a little bit different into RoboCop 3, and at least he does battle more than one of them, which also makes me hope that at some point Hiya Toys does give us another version of Otomo. Not one gets packaged with RoboCop, because again, like they could have included a secondary head sculpt for Otomo, but then I would have probably wanted to pick up another one anyways, and I don't necessarily need another RoboCop with his arm cannon. Maybe I can only hope that Hiya Toys at some point releases a standalone Otomo with a clean face instead. What do you guys think of the set? Let me know down below in the comments section. And what do you guys think of RoboCop 3? Good movie? Bad movie? Certainly I feel, at least, it's nowhere close to being as good as RoboCop 1, and it's not as good as being RoboCop 2. I personally like RoboCop 2. I love the first two movies. RoboCop 3, not so much. But what do you guys, again, think of this figures? Let me know what you guys think of the figures down below in the comments section. And again, if you enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you love the content you guys are seeing and do want to certainly stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn the bell notification on. Popping up also at the very end of this video would be a playlist of other things I've reviewed for Hiya Toys with many more things to follow. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.